If you've ever had to deal with a narcissist on a long-term basis, one thing you've probably discovered was trying to communicate could be one of the most frustrating experiences of your life. Just trying to get a simple concept across or trying to ask a simple question can turn into the most frustrating, confusing experience imaginable. Sometimes it might feel like you're speaking another language or like they're responding to someone who is saying something completely different from what you're saying. But why is this? What is it about narcissism that makes communication so impossible? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. Now, I think there are really clear, easy to define reasons why communication is so difficult for narcissists and why communication and narcissism just don't go together. But first, let's think about what communication is. Communication is about sharing information. It's about two separate individuals sharing information with each other about what they think, what has happened to them, like experiences that they've had, needs they have, feelings they might feel, things that they want the other person to understand in order to know how to treat them or how they would like to be treated. It's just sharing relevant information in order to build a healthy or constructive relationship. When you're communicating with someone, you're sharing things about yourself or things that have come from your experience and your perspective, and you are wanting to share that information with the other person so that they can understand things that you know. Or you might be asking questions so that you can understand things from the other person's perspective. You might want information to understand things that the other person thinks or feels or needs. So that's what communication is, right? It builds a healthy relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship, a personal relationship, or even a workplace relationship. Communication is key in order to be able to get to know each other's needs, to understand each other, and to work together. So why doesn't this work with a narcissist? First, I want to talk about a narcissist's fantasies, like their narrative, and a narcissist's entitlement. So when I talk about a narcissist's fantasies or their narrative, they've already developed in their head all relevant information. Anything that matters to them, they already know. They don't need your input. They don't want to know your perspective. They don't care about your experiences, your needs, your opinions, your feelings, your input. They don't need any of that. They have already constructed the perfect world in their imagination. They already, quote, know who you are, or at least who you're supposed to be. They already know, or they think they know, everything that you think and feel. They aren't interested in hearing about it from you because they've already decided. They've already decided what kind of person they are and how they present to the world and how people look at them and what people think of them. They've already decided these things and they don't want your input. Unless your input supports their worldview, supports their narrative, feeds their ego, and helps perpetuate this fantasy that they have. That's fine because that's something they've already decided that you should think. So if you're saying things that support the things that they believe you should be saying or the things they believe about you, that's fine. And I'm sure they like that, right? But if you start saying things that don't fit the narrative, maybe even things that conflict with the narrative, they don't want to hear that. They aren't interested. They don't care about it. And worst case, it's threatening to them. And it's something they're going to fight against. When you start to input problems, even if these problems are based in reality, into their fantasy, that takes away the control that they want to have over their life, over their identity, over your identity. They want to control everything. Like they live in a little snow globe that they constructed. They don't want your input, especially when your input is based on a reality that conflicts with their little world that they've constructed, because they want to control it. So when you communicate things that conflict with their narrative, you're threatening the control that they think they have over their world. And now when we combine with this their entitlement, their sense of entitlement, they, as unreasonable and childish as it might seem, they really feel like these fantasies that they have, these dreams they have, or these narratives that they've written are things they're entitled to. They are entitled to you being the person they imagine you are. They are entitled to the world perceiving them the way they want to be perceived. They are entitled to things working out the way they want them to. They're entitled to all that. And when reality conflicts with their fantasy, they don't learn anything, or they don't learn anything constructive. Instead of learning like, oh, sometimes reality doesn't work out with what I believe, instead of thinking that, they will instead feel like the world is ganging up on them, everyone's out to get them, they're never going to get anything that they want, and they're more of a victim. And then being more of a victim just makes them more entitled to more of what they want. So it actually just makes things worse. They don't learn anything, and they just become even more entitled to their dreams and their fantasies. As an example, imagine that there is a narcissistic mother raising a daughter, and in that mother's mind, for whatever reason, that daughter is supposed to have straight hair. Like she has this vision in her head of who her daughter's supposed to be. And of course, that's because that's the way the daughter is supposed to reflect on the mother, or vice versa. You know what I mean? The way the mother imagines her daughter is supposed to look and is supposed to present herself. She's supposed to have straight hair for whatever reason. The mother feels entitled to that straight hair. And the mother feels like it's already reality. It's already come to fruition because it's her dream, it's her fantasy. And if the daughter tries to communicate real reasons that maybe and in this scenario, the daughter has naturally curly hair, of course. If the daughter tries to communicate reasons why she can't straighten her hair, or straightening her hair every day is too much of a burden, it takes up too much time, or it damages her hair, or whatever reason, trying to communicate factual, real, reality-based reasons why she can't straighten her hair, the mother understands what the daughter's saying. It's not that she doesn't understand, but she's not interested in this input. She is entitled to this dream. She's entitled to this fantasy of a daughter with straight hair. And even if they go to a salon and talk to a professional cosmetologist that tells her, well, you can't really straighten her hair without damaging it, or maybe her hair is so curly that this really isn't going to work, it's going to grow out all the time, whatever, even being told factual things by a professional, she understands these things, but it conflicts with her fantasy that she's entitled to. She's not interested in this input. She doesn't want to be communicated to. She wants what she wants, period. And she knows, and this is all emotional. You have to remember that narcissists reason with their emotions. They believe their reality based on their emotions. They interpret reality based on their emotions. So if she feels like she's entitled to a daughter with straight hair, and she feels like that's the reality that should be, that she has control over, she doesn't care what reasons are thrown at her, how much you try to communicate reality. She doesn't care about any of that. And all of that is like, it feels like a personal attack, and it just makes her feel more entitled to what she's entitled to. And that's why, these are just a couple reasons that it's so difficult to communicate with a narcissist, especially when you're trying to explain to them why they can't have everything they want the way that they want. It's not that they don't understand. It's that emotionally, they don't really believe that reality applies to them. They know There's some way that this daughter can have straight hair. There's some way. You're just holding out on her. You're just trying to make her life difficult. You just don't want her to have the things that she's entitled to. And, you know, I mean, in reality, there's probably some way to straighten this girl's hair, right? And that's what she does. She knows there's some way, even no matter how impractical, no matter how painful, no matter how much it damages the girl's hair, there's some way to do it. And the only reason you're not doing it is because you don't want her to have what she wants. And there is no thought to, you know, what the daughter wants. Maybe the daughter wants her hair curly. There's no thought to what a pain this is to other people that are trying to appease her. There is no thought to what a burden this is on the people that have to live with this, right? It's just me, me, me. I want what I want. And if you don't make my dreams come true, you just hate me and you don't want me to have the things I want. Okay, now let's talk about a couple other reasons that are quite different from these of why it's so hard to communicate with a narcissist. And those reasons are narcissists don't trust you. They don't trust your intentions. They don't believe what you're telling them. So if you're telling them your daughter can't have straight hair because X, Y, and Z, well, they don't believe you because everyone has an angle. Everyone's always trying to pull one over on you or trying to trick you into something. And maybe that thing they're trying to trick you into is just giving up on your dreams. Maybe they're just trying to manipulate you into not getting your way. So they don't trust you. They don't trust what you're saying. When you're trying to communicate reality to them, they're thinking, yeah, what are you really saying? What do you really want? And then add to that narcissists are always performing. They aren't communicating. They don't want you to know what they really think or how they really feel about things. And even if they did, they're so concerned with how they look, what kind of impression they're making, how they're measuring up against other people, what people think of them, that anything they ever have to say, anything they ever have to express to anyone, no matter how mundane or how unimportant it might seem, is something they're considering in terms of how does this make me look? How do I say this in a way that impresses people or makes me better than other people? So when you ask them a simple question, they don't think to just answer it, because first they're wondering, what are you up to? They don't trust you. And then second, they want to make sure that they make a good impression and they're not just wasting this opportunity to just tell you the truth about something. And this is why it's so hard to just get a straight answer from them with the simplest questions, or why when you think you're just having a simple conversation with them, you might find later, you might run into facts about them where you look back and think, wait, that's not at all what they said to me. That doesn't jive with whatever they told me about their history. I wanted to make an example or present an example of what I mean. And I would never use this example if it wasn't real because it's so ridiculous. But I was recently talking with somebody who knew a very narcissistic woman years ago. I never met her, but I just thought this story was funny and a really good illustration of what I'm talking about. Now, this is a foggy memory, to be fair, so some of the details might not quite be right, but he said that he worked with this woman and they got to know each other really well, or, you know, he thought they did. And he said that at some point she told him, and he couldn't quite remember what it was, but she told him that in school, she had majored in ballerina science. Like, that was her field of expertise. And like, when he's telling this story to me, I asked, like, she actually said ballerina science? And he said, well, maybe it was ballerina biology. And this was a professional woman. I mean, she was very young, but she had a degree and she was in a professional field. So, and I asked him, did you ever find out what she actually majored in? And I guess the story, and again, the details are foggy, but the story is that she began in dance and then she injured herself and she couldn't dance anymore. And so she went on to get a degree in, I think, biology, something like that is what he said. So in her mind, you know, that story is not impressive enough. So when someone asks her, what did you major in college? She can't just say, oh, I started in dance, but then I injured myself. So then I went on and got a bachelor's in biology. Just plain truth. She's got to think ballerina science. And I it's like, in her mind, I'm sure that sounded really impressive. And I think, like I said, I would never share that example as a made-up example because it sounds so ridiculous, but this is really what this grown woman said to a coworker. And I think it's a really good illustration of how narcissistic people can't just answer straightforward, truthful answers. They're always thinking like, how can I make this sound really impressive? How can I create the image or present the image that I want to create? And there's no thought to how ridiculous they sound or how this person's going to find out eventually that you majored in biology. It's just, it's so in the moment. They're very rarely planning ahead or thinking in the future. They're just caught in that moment of how do I impress this person and make myself sound really important? And to her, that made sense. And you can apply this example to lots of different situations. You know, what'd you major in school? What's your favorite dessert? Where's your favorite place to go on vacation? Or, oh, where did you go to school? Just things that are kind of mundane, getting to know you questions that should just have simple, straightforward answers. But narcissists can't just answer the question because they're thinking something like, if you ask me what I majored in school, and I tell you biology, well, what are you up to? What's your angle? Are you trying to humiliate me? Are you going to come back and tell me that you're a brain surgeon if I tell you that I majored in biology? Well, I'm not going to fall for that. I'm going to come up with something better. Well, I was in dance and, well, I did major in something scientific after that. So I guess I'm a ballerina science. Yeah, try to beat that one. And that's like what they're thinking. They have this whole imaginary scenario going on in their head that you can't see. And that's why it's so hard to understand why they can't just give you a straight answer, why they can't just be truthful, why you can't just have an exchange of ideas that is authentic, why you can't just have a back and forth where you're learning about each other, because everything is a performance. Everything is contrived. Everything is deliberate. Everything's supposed to make some kind of impression. And that's always the most important thing. That's always the priority. Communication is not even an afterthought. Communication is bad because communication means, true communication means that you're going to realize that they just have a biology degree. You're going to realize in their mind that you're better than them or that they're not so great. And then you're going to judge them. You're going to humiliate them. And they're not going to let that happen. And to them, that's what real authentic communication feels like. It's just threatening and it's unnecessary. Now, another problem with communication and narcissists is accountability, because many times when you're trying to communicate with a narcissist, you're trying to communicate something to them that's troubling you, something maybe they did that hurt your feelings, or something you need from them, something they aren't doing that you need them to do, something that they need to do better at, or they need to change, at least from your perspective. That's accountability. Communication often leads to accountability, and that is a narcissist's kryptonite, right? They are not interested in that. And from the narcissist's perspective, anything that isn't brought out in the open, anything that isn't, that they aren't forced to be confronted with right in their face, doesn't exist. So if they said something to you that hurt your feelings and you never bring it up, you don't say that it hurt your feelings, then as far as they're concerned, that is just as good as if they had never hurt your feelings. It's like it never happened. Now, if you say something and you tell them you hurt my feelings, now in their mind, you've made it an issue. It wasn't an issue before when you kept your mouth shut. It was like it never happened. But now that you said something, now you attacked them with your feelings. You tried to shake up their narrative and tried to tell them that they weren't perfect. You did that. Not them when they did something that hurt your feelings, but you did that when you tried to communicate how you felt. So the fact that communication often leads to accountability or asks for accountability is another reason that narcissists are not interested in communication, because the more you communicate, the more chances you're going to run into something that you have to face about yourself that you don't want to look at. I also quickly want to touch on nonverbal communication, because this can be a huge problem with narcissists on both sides, your perspective and theirs. On one side, narcissists will often use nonverbal communication to express their anger, maybe by giving you the silent treatment, or maybe just by acting huffy and angry, just, you could tell they're in a bad mood even if they're not saying anything. They're being short with you. They're using nonverbal cues. They're scowling, right? Just things that make it obvious that they're upset. But when you try to ask them, they discourage that by attacking you or telling you you're crazy. Or, in situations I've been in, when I said, "Are you okay?" I was actually responded to with, "Yeah, I'm okay. Why? Are you okay?" And just turning it back around on me. Like, okay, am I crazy? Because it seems like he's really upset. And then on the other hand, from your perspective, at least from what I've experienced, you're accused of giving nonverbal cues that you don't mean to give. So being told you seem really angry, or you're not listening to me, or you seem really uninterested in what I'm saying, or just anything, and trying to defend yourself, like, no, that's not what I'm not feeling that way. I didn't mean to present myself in a way that made you feel like I was angry or that I wasn't interested in what you were saying. But you can't redeem yourself with a narcissist because they don't trust you. They don't trust your interpretation of what they believe or what they feel is true. So both sides, there's just this huge breakdown in nonverbal communication. You are told that your interpretation of their nonverbal cues are wrong, that you can't trust your gut when it comes to obvious nonverbal cues they're giving off. And then you're also taught that you need to be really, really careful with the way that you shift your eyes or the tone of your voice or just the way you're sitting, because they might think that you're feeling something you're not feeling. And then once they get that in their head, good luck trying to explain it away, because they've already made up their mind. So there's this huge breakdown in nonverbal communication with narcissists because they already know what you think and how you feel. And they don't think that you have a right to know how they think and feel. And so nonverbal communication just doesn't work. And this can also be a reason that victims of narcissistic abuse might wonder if they're a narcissist themselves, because this is like two sides of the same coin. You can tell they're upset, but they're telling you they're not, but they're accusing you of being upset when you're not, and you can't convince them otherwise. And that can be really confusing. And you can start to think, well, maybe they're experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. Maybe I'm the narcissist. So this is just one reason that you can feel that kind of confusion. And of course, communication, all in all, the purpose is to build a relationship, is to build or to experience intimacy. When you are having dialogue or nonverbal cues or any kind of communication with another human being where you are learning truths about each other, where you are trusting each other to express what you think and how you feel, to express feedback to the other person, and you're learning about each other, that builds relationship. It builds trust. It builds intimacy. And narcissists are not interested in any of that. They have already decided who you are. If you're their partner, that's it. There's no point in getting to know you, or there's no point in building any back and forth. They don't want you to actually see what's in their heart, what they think and what they feel. They don't want you to know anything about them. You're already their partner. That's all that matters. There's no point in communicating anything anymore because that's the end of the story. And so to a narcissist, communication is not only unnecessary, it is a threat to everything they've worked hard to build. It is a threat to everything they already believe and everything they want to continue to believe. Communication is pointless and it's threatening. And that's why it's so difficult to express yourself to be understood, even with the most simplest concepts and simplest questions, because absolutely everything to a narcissist is an opportunity for them to be humiliated or for them to be held accountable or for them to put on a show and make an impression. So next time you are trying to think of how to rephrase something or to restate something that you've tried to tell them or tried to ask them 1,000 times, just remember that there's probably nothing wrong with what you're saying, how you're saying it, especially if you've tried to restate yourself 1,000 times, you're probably being extremely clear and they probably understand what you're saying completely, but they feel entitled to deny what you say. They feel entitled to their fantasy and they feel attacked that you're trying to take away their dreams from them or you're trying to take away their beliefs, their feelings, what their feelings are telling them are true. You're fighting against their truth and they don't trust you enough to trust what you're saying. So it's not that you're saying it wrong. It's not that you need to restate it or rephrase it. It's that you're trying to communicate with someone who is actively against communication, someone who is not interested in communication and finds it threatening. If you're in this kind of situation, just remember it's not your responsibility to make sure somebody else understands you and to make sure that somebody else is expressing themselves in an authentic way. You can only control yourself and you can only control your methods of communication and the way that you communicate and the way that you listen to other people. So you're responsible to express yourself clearly in a situation where you want to be understood. But that's it. You're not responsible to restate it, rephrase it, re-explain it to somebody who doesn't want to understand you, who doesn't want to hear what you're saying. So state whatever it is you want to say once. And if you're talking to a reasonably intelligent grown-up, that should be enough. If they're confused, they are responsible to ask you for clarity. There's nothing wrong with the way you've said anything. And if they're confused, like I said, that's their responsibility. That's their problem, not yours to solve. Remember, narcissists don't communicate. They manipulate and they perform. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.